This is Old London. Life here is not easy. Living here is not just about breathing. You have to survive. Here, life begins before the sun rises. If you are late, you lose your place. If you stop, you get crushed. And this city does not wait for you, because everyone has one goal: to survive. On one side, the wealthy, living in warm homes, in spacious rooms. On the other side, lives trapped in narrow streets. The same city, but two different worlds. And which one are you in? Maybe you are a worker, walking to the factory in the darkness of morning. Maybe you are a seller, waiting for your first customer of the day. Or maybe you are just someone lost in this crowd. But no matter who you are, there is only one rule in this city: stay strong, because here, weakness is not forgiven. Now take a deep breath and get ready, because this video will not just make you a viewer, it will pull you into this city. You will walk these streets, you will breathe this air, you will get lost in this crowd, and maybe you will find yourself right in the middle of a life you never wanted. Life in Old London is beginning. Life in Old London began with the first light of day. The city was often covered in a thick layer of fog, and this was simply a part of everyday life. The morning hours marked the beginning of work and the movement of the streets. People living in the city had to start their day early. For most, the morning hours were crucial, as they would be working all day. Shopkeepers, workers, and daily laborers completed their preparations and began their day. Imagine stepping out into the street. Everything around you seems lost in the fog. You can't clearly see people, only their shadows. In this city, the day begins not with clarity, but with uncertainty. As the sun rose, the movement in the city began to grow. The streets quickly filled up, and trade and daily tasks intensified. From the early hours of the morning, London became a city in constant motion. With the Industrial Revolution, production in London increased rapidly. Factories were active across many parts of the city, and this had a serious impact on air quality. Even in the early hours of the morning, the city could be covered in smoke and polluted air. Life in London varied greatly depending on social class. Even on the same street, the rich and the poor lived completely different lives. This difference could be felt in every moment of daily life. Imagine blending into the crowd. Everyone is rushing somewhere, and stopping is almost impossible. The noise, the movement, the intensity constantly push you forward. In this city, to survive, you have to keep up with the pace. Unlike the bridges we know today, London Bridge was not just a crossing point in the past. It was also a place where people lived. There were houses on it, and shops as well. This made the bridge both crowded and difficult to pass through. The River Thames, although located at the heart of the city, was once heavily polluted. A large portion of the city's waste was directly dumped into the river. This situation negatively affected both the environment and human health. Imagine standing in front of this structure. Its tall walls and harsh appearance press down on you. This is not just a building, it is also a symbol of power and control. For many people, entering inside could mean no return. St. Paul's Cathedral was already one of the city's most important landmarks at the time. However, its surroundings were nothing like today, open and organized. The structure was encircled by narrow streets and densely packed buildings. Covent Garden, which is now a more organized and touristic area, was once a busy marketplace. People came here to meet their daily needs, and most of the time, the area was crowded and full of noise. The Westminster area, the center of the city's governance, was far from the orderly appearance it has today. The overall structure of the city had developed in a dense and unplanned way. This affected both the appearance of London and the living conditions. Imagine walking through this city. The places you see feel familiar, but nothing is the way you know it. Even though you are in the same city, it feels like a completely different world. Old London was a different reality, lost within the past. In Old London, a large part of the population lived in narrow, crowded neighborhoods. Homes were often small, poorly ventilated, and neglected. With so many people living in the same space, living conditions were extremely limited. The wealthier part of the city lived under completely different conditions. Spacious homes, cleaner environments, and a more orderly way of life belonged to them. In London, living standards largely depended on economic status. Imagine thinking about the place you live. The space is narrow, possessions are limited, and silence is almost non-existent. The voices of your neighbors easily pass through the walls. In this environment, being truly alone is almost impossible. In many homes, more than one family lived together. Because space was limited, rooms were shared, and privacy was extremely restricted. This situation made daily life more difficult. At night, these neighborhoods became even darker. With poor lighting, the streets and homes were far from safe. This situation made life even more dangerous, especially in lower-income areas. For the wealthy, life was far more comfortable. There were servants in their homes, and their living spaces were large and comfortable. This difference clearly revealed the social divide in the city. Imagine looking around you. In the same city, there are two different worlds. On one side, a comfortable and orderly life. On the other, crowded and harsh conditions. In Old London, where you lived, determined how your life would unfold. In Old London, healthcare services were extremely limited. Doctors did not have modern knowledge, and the methods they used were often risky. Even a simple illness could lead to serious consequences. At the time, one of the most common treatment methods was bloodletting. It was believed that diseases could be cured this way. However, this method often made the patient even weaker. Imagine thinking you are ill. There are people trying to help you, but you don't know if you will truly recover. Here, receiving treatment sometimes means taking a risk rather than getting better. Despite all the hardships, people still found ways to entertain themselves. Theaters were one of the most important places of entertainment for the public. Performances offered a brief escape from the city's intense pace. Taverns were also at the center of social life. People gathered here, talked, and tried to shake off the fatigue of the day. However, these places could sometimes become uncontrolled and noisy. The streets were also a place of entertainment. Musicians, performers, and artists gave people a brief escape from the stress of daily life. Imagine being in the crowd. People around you are laughing, talking, enjoying themselves. But you know, this moment is temporary, because in this city, even entertainment is just a short break from a hard life. In Old London, daily life was highly active. The streets were crowded for most of the day, and people were constantly trying to get somewhere. This pace was one of the city's defining characteristics. Horse-drawn carriages formed the basis of transportation. However, because the roads were narrow, these vehicles often made movement difficult. Pedestrians and carriages sharing the same space created a constant sense of chaos throughout the city. Imagine moving along the road. On one side, people. On the other, carriages cutting you off. Even taking a step requires attention. In this city, even walking is a challenge on its own. The streets were also the center of trade. Small stalls and street vendors formed the places where daily needs were met. This system provided a fast and practical way to shop. The roads were often poorly maintained and muddy. After the rain, the streets became even harder, and walking turned into a struggle. This situation directly affected daily life. Life in London was not the same everywhere. Some areas were calmer and more orderly, while others were in constant motion. This variety shaped the city's dynamic character. Imagine stopping for a moment, but the city doesn't stop. Everyone continues moving along their own path. In Old London, life kept flowing, without waiting for you. In Old London, work was at the center of life. People spent most of their day working, just to make a living. Working hours were long, and the conditions were often harsh. With the Industrial Revolution, factories became one of the most important workplaces in the city. As production increased rapidly, workers labored under heavy conditions. Noise, heat, and long hours were all part of this environment. Imagine working. Everything around you is in constant motion, and the noise never stops. Even if you're exhausted, there's no chance to stop. In this environment, even staying on your feet is a struggle on its own. Child labor was extremely common. Even young children were forced to work. Especially dangerous jobs like chimney sweeping were assigned to them. Outside the factories, craftsmen also held an important place. Work done in small workshops was more controlled. However, these trades gradually began to fall behind industrial production. In London, there was a wide variety of professions. Workers, sellers, craftsmen, and service workers formed the foundation of the city's economy. However, most of these jobs required physical strength. Imagine stopping at the end of the day. Your body is exhausted, your mind is slowed down. But you know, the next day, you will return to the same pace. In this city, working was an unavoidable part of life. In Old London, the system of governance was based on a parliamentary structure. However, this system was not equal for everyone. Decision-making processes were generally controlled by a certain group. The foundations of the modern police system were laid during this period. Regular patrols began to be carried out to maintain security. However, this system did not have the same effect in every area. Imagine walking in the street at night. You see a police officer in the distance, but that doesn't always mean you are safe. Some streets are still beyond control. In this city, you have to stay alert. Crime was common, especially in crowded and poor areas. Theft and fraud were frequent occurrences. Some parts of the city were considered more dangerous in terms of safety. In some areas, organized crime groups were influential. These groups tried to establish control over certain districts. In places where official authority could not reach, their influence grew stronger. Punishments for crimes were extremely harsh. To maintain public order, quick and deterrent measures were enforced. This system aimed to establish control through fear. Imagine looking around you. On one side, a system trying to maintain order. On the other, people who exist outside of it. It's hard to tell who truly holds the control. In this city, power is not always what it seems. Old London was a powerful city, constantly in motion. Industry, trade, and population growth shaped this structure. However, this development did not offer the same living conditions for everyone. One of the most striking differences in the city was the gap between social classes. Within the same city, completely different lives were being lived. This difference could be felt in every aspect of daily life. Imagine thinking about your daily life. You are constantly in motion, and stopping is hardly possible. The noise, the crowd, the pace pull you in. In this city, calmness is something rare. London had become one of the most important cities of its time. Economic and industrial development continued rapidly. While this made the city stronger, it also made life more complex. Imagine stopping at the end of the day. You are exhausted, but the city is still in motion. Even resting feels like a short break, because this cycle repeats every day. Over time, London continued to change and develop. Progress was made in infrastructure, health, and urban planning. However, this transformation was the result of a long process. Now, when you think again, this city both offers opportunities and challenges you. Living here is not just about existing, it means constantly staying on your feet. In Old London, life was a struggle that had to be won every single day.